Hi guys, welcome to Signal Path. Today we are talking about two devices from Template Devices that share kind of a lot of commonality. The Reel Deluxe is one part DI, one part vibrato, one part tape machine preamp with some compression and tone shaping options that really just sound incredible. And if you are somebody who enjoys kind of like old school like EP booster and like just that original kind of like hi-fi warm preamp sound, this takes it to the next level with some really beautiful quality of life features, a gain range that goes from really beautiful cleans all the way to like fuzzed out console kind of distortion sounds, and the vibrato ranges from like almost like harmonic trem feeling sounds over to full on chorus, and in addition, an XLR out that allows you to kind of treat this like a DI and use this as a preamp for direct in recordings, which is really neat, and an amenity that I really enjoy. And with the Reel Deal Studio, this is a stereo version, effectively of the same thing, where you have separate preamps for each channel, as well as separate vibratos, ways to link and divert different modulation to modulate them separately or in sync in really cool ways. But overall, I think these are a delight to have in the studio and something that I've really enjoyed as a texture and something that simply presented just delivers really incredible sounds. In the intro example, I'm using this as my acoustic DI. And it sounds great. It has a great preamp sound, but it's also fun to kind of wind in the vibrato on top of that. So we're going to dive into a little bit of both. We're going to use the Reel Deluxe on guitar, and then we're going to talk a little bit about like how I kind of use the Reel Deal Studio as like almost like a bus processor for ambient looping and that kind of stuff to create nice stereo texture and warmth, and kind of use it as a creative effect for very end of chain uses on that side. But before we jump into it, if this is the kind of content that you enjoy, it would mean a ton to me if you would like this video to let YouTube know to recommend this kind of content in the future, and subscribe to the channel to follow along. Let's dive into it. All right, let's take a look at the Reel Deluxe. I'm playing my Balaguer Ambient Espada Select into the Bondi FX Squish As, and that is running into the UA Dream and Ruby, which is being mixed in parallel in the GFI Duophony, and running out of that into the Panther preamps from Lauren Audio. It sounds like this. And here's the Reel Deluxe. So let's take it part by part here. To begin, on the left side we have a vibrato. Zenith controls our rate, and offset controls our depth. Sounds nice, and the invert switch on the left side here brings in and out a dry signal to kind of create this like phasing, kind of wider modulation sound. Sounds great. And on the right side of the pedal, we have a tape machine style preamp. Tape speed creates kind of different characters through different frequency emphases. If we're on the top setting, it's basically full frequency. In the middle setting, the mids are emphasized a bit. And on the bottom setting, we get something that is a little bit thinner and brighter to kind of be used almost like a treble boost. And the limit switch kind of adds a stage of kind of high-end compression. Without it, and that is kind of the swath of controls. Other than that, we have our gain control and our level control for the preamp. It gives us drive and clean boost and anything that we might need in kind of changing the texture and gain of the preamp. But what this does is that is basically the primary controls for this entire device, but it gives you an incredible array of options and textures to create. And if you're looking for like a one pedal front end, this is something that does so many different things separately between the two sides and all together. One thing I love about the drive character of this pedal is that it's like clean dirty all the time, where if we bring the gain back and we just want like pure, hi-fi preamp vibes, we can do that. Turn limit on, bring the gain back. Really pretty, but then we start winding the gain up. Got a great distortion pedal. can really, with the gain wound up, you can really hear how that third setting kind of, you know, adds to the jangle. And that could be really, really cool for like, you know, certain kind of jangly clean parts and those sorts of things. If you ever need to like live a cowboy dream, I think put a train beat behind that and you've got kind of a classic country thing, I think, kind of tucked in there and kind of, you know, one very, very simple step. But overall, this serves as both an effect and a platform. I think this is one of my favorite uses for like hi-fi and hi-fi adjacent sounds. It's like such a natural complement for ambient music, and, you know, taking like an insanely good clean preamp sound, adding delay and reverb, So, I mean, natural kind of friend to ambient. And there's, I mean, really a few sounds in here that could, you know, boast the same. If we go to that middle setting for the tape speed, and even the brighter setting. It's got that kind of like unbelievable, like clear, bright preamp thing when you really want it to, which I think is really cool. But I tend to live on kind of that top setting there. So whether you're using it as a preamp or an overdrive, it's got just kind of a lot of soul to it. If we bring the volume back and kind of wind up the gain a little bit more, this thing just makes me play like singer-songwriter stuff, like and some of that probably is due to the fact that it's a really fun preamp, but then the moment you wind the our kind of chorus back into things, it instantly feels to me like my favorite kind of singer-songwriter gigs that I've both played and been to. Where it kind of rewards contemplating the guitar. It's like that, just interesting enough to be fluid and feel good when you're changing up your playing, but not so interesting that it feels like it takes away from the expression of the guitar. What's cool about this is, you know, the vibrato has a very kind of traditional vibrato sound, but when you wind the speed up and turn the invert off, depending on the chord and the note, it almost kind of has this like harmonic tremolo. So let's talk about, you know, now that we have both of these on, let's talk about a couple of the ways that I've been using the Reel Deluxe. Obviously, you know, kind of typically rock oriented, but, you know, definitely some really, really strong ambient applications here. So without the vibrato, we'll leave the preamp on here, but it sounds good, but it's a little bit, you know, lacking movement, I would say. I'd bring that back in. And then if we bring the second position for the tape speed back in, where it darkens things a bit. We turn invert on. That's really where that kind of like tape flutter vibe, I think, starts to come in with the middle setting for tone, but then invert on to kind of give me back a little bit of the dry signal. With a slightly smaller verb and no delay. And then when you take this really slow with the invert, you almost sort of lose the fact that there's modulation on. If I turn it off, just kind of imparting its own like kind of character, and that slow sweep is, you know, just enough to change the feel of what's being played. We turn invert off. But if we take this, this whole vibe and start to, send the gain a little bit higher, and kind of with the intent of, driving it a bit more. So where things might feel a little ice picky at times, bringing in the vibrato really helps tame that down again. This thing really has the full range, right? Big distortion and kind of chunky riff rock all the way over to, really, really vibey and sensitive sounds. But for me, it's, really where the magic of this pedal lives is I think almost entirely kind of in settings like this, where gain is lower, middle setting is on, just to give a really full preamp kind of feel and sound. You set something like this up and really maybe a little bit of verb as well. I could really sit and play with this for hours. It's I think one of the most beautiful combinations of effects. Just pretty preamp with great modulation. let's take a look at the studio version. All right, let's look at the Reel Deal Studio. I have a microcosm loop that has been kind of trapped, and we can swell that in with the master level knob, which is kind of in the center here. But this is now inserted basically post amps. And right now you're just hearing the character of the preamps. If we want to bring in some modulation, we can roll up the offset, which is these kind of lower knobs on each side. Create a little bit of like stereo movement and feel. And if we want, we can decouple the modulation with the link switch. We can make one side a vibrato while the other side's a phaser, or vice versa. And if we reverse the polarity of one side, we can make them basically work opposite to one another. Create some really, really cool kind of patterns against what we're playing in the background. We bring the gain up, we can start to drive things out, and if we bring the master volume down, you can really drive it hard and create some really cool textural pieces with that. Or you can turn it into just kind of a nice mastering chain for your pedal board. Turn the modulation all the way off, gain down pretty far. You've got just something that's just going to squeeze on your kind of overall sound and bring it to a really, really nice place of kind of just sweetening and kind of real preamp sound on the back end of your chain. So, something that has a lot of uses if you're just looking to master your amps, kind of with something like this, useful for that. But if you're also just kind of looking for something that you can put on the desk and have as kind of a tactile tool for experimenting with different kind of sounds and approaches, that's also possible.